that away. It's just
See, this is September 15th,
15.
1983.
Mm.
This is Joe Todd and Doris Thames, an interview with Kathleen Reed Perry. Katheryn, I'm sorry. Katheryn
Reed.
Reed Perry Barber.
Well, that's all right. I didn't know you were going to use all that, but however, that's what I have been up to now.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Barber, where were you born?
Guthrie,
Guthrie. When's your birthday?
6 months, second day, '08.
6 months, second day, '08.
June the 2nd, 1908. I'm glad you proved me about that.
Who was your father?
James Allen Reed.
Where was he from?
I believe it's, I've got it all in there on my.
James Reed, South Carolina. And who was your mother?
Nanny. Now, she was Osborne before she married Reed.
Osborne?
Osborne, O-S-B-O-R-N-E. It's on there.
And she was from Missouri.
Yeah.
How come your parents came to Oklahoma?
I don't know. Guess that's where they homesteaded, I guess.
Did, what kind of work did your father do?
He was in Patterson undertaking here a long time ago. Patterson's undertaking.
As a child, what kind of chores you do around the house?
Us?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I imagine anything they wanted us to do, like keeping up and going to school. Mother worked out, and so did my father.
Yeah.
So we just done little chores as children should do, go to school and come back. That the mailman.
No. When did you start to school?
Here in Guthrie.
Okay, what school?
Douglas.
Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
What year?
That's way back there now, when I become 6 years old after.
Be 1914?
Yeah, I was born in 1980. 6 years after that's when I started up there.
Were there any organized efforts in school during World War I to help the war effort? 1917, 1918?
We wasn't living here then. That's when my mother passed. We were in Drumright. 1917. They had that flu epidemic.
Yeah.
That's where my mother passed at. We left Guthrie and went there.
Did she die in the flu epidemic?
Yes.
Okay. How bad was that flu epidemic in Drumright?
It was pretty rough because it was passing so fast. The undertaker couldn't take care of them. The family had to take care of them themselves.
So your mother passed away in the... Right.
Between 1917 and 18. Is that on?
Yeah.
Kept loud.
Did most of the family have the flu at that time?
Didn't any of the children have it.
Yeah.
Just my mother. She's on a cotton pick and had a young baby, so my daddy come from Winnipeg County and come back and put her away. So didn't any of the children have this flu? Just her.
What started that flu epidemic?
I'm telling you, I don't know. All we heard is people saying hen flew in the window, and that's all we heard about that. But it was a flu epidemic, the worst one I believe we ever had.
Yeah.
And that's when my mother passed.
What did they mean by the hen flew in the window?
Just it was coming so fast everywhere. That was old slogan. Hen flew in the window. That's all we could ever get out of it. Mhm.
Hmm. How long did you stay in Drumright?
Well, I don't remember just when we went there, but after my mother passed between 1917 and 18 is when that flew. Well, then we went to Mannford, Oklahoma, called Salt Creek then, with my grandmother, my father's mother. Uh-huh.
How well did you know your grandmother?
Well, just well as any child should.
Yeah.
We were around her, well, longer than we were anybody else after
Yeah.
my mother passed.
Mm-hmm.
But we moved from Guthrie to Drumright.
Did your grandmother talk about stories when she was a little girl?
Talk about what?
Talk about stories when she was a little girl?
What, like this history?
Yeah. And anything that happened to her?
Never heard of anything.
Yeah.
All we knew, she taking care of us and sent us to school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
That was in Mannford?
Mannford, called
Yeah.
Salt Creek.
Salt Creek.
Mm-hmm. Mannford, Oklahoma.
How come they changed the name to Mannford?
That's what it was in the first place, I think. But I don't know why this Salt Creek come up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But it's New Mannford now.
Yeah.
I passed that quite a bit on going to Tulsa, you know.
Yeah, the lake covered.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened.
Yeah. How long did you stay in Mannford?
I think we stayed with grandmother a couple of 2-3 years, and then we came here to Guthrie with my aunt, Susie Maples.
Susie Maple.
It's on there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Isn't her name on it? Susie Maple. No, I guess it wouldn't be on that birth certificate. No, it's on my marriage license. You wait a minute, I'll get it. Because I had all this stuff beautiful for them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, my marriage license.
What year were you married?
It's all here. I can't keep that thing together, but it's all here.
And Susie Maple was your aunt?
Uh-huh. This is to Robert Perry, marriage and divorce. Perry, yeah. I had to go through this mess so much to, yeah, here, this is the marriage license to Robert.
Yeah.
This is divorce. I was thinking about birth certificate, but it wasn't on that. It's marriage license. This is divorce.
Okay, 1922.
October.
October 17th, 1922.
All right, that's it.
19 what?
1922.
1920.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Was
that was
Robert
J.
Perry?
Yeah.
J.E. White.
Susie
Emma
Maple.
Butcher.
Yeah, she was a witness.
Right. This for Robert Perry.
How come you came back to Guthrie?
How come we came back?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that's when I said when we left my grandmother, we came back to my aunt, Susie Maples.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there is when I got married to Robert Perry.
Okay.
Susie lived in Guthrie?
Yeah, she lived here in Guthrie, Susie Maples. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. How long had she lived in Guthrie, your aunt?
Well, most all of her life, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And she was an Osborne too, Susie Osborne, before she married Maples.
Where'd you meet your husband, Mr. Perry?
Right here in Guthrie.
Met him here in Guthrie?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of work did he do?
Cooked all his life, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
First cooked at Bates Cafe, used to be here. And then his next job was at the Harvey House. He left the Harvey House. He went to Newkirk and cooked at the Chili King Cafe.
Hmm.
And then at Davis, Oklahoma, he cooked at another cafe. I don't recall that because I wasn't with him. But the last place that I know he cooked was Chili King Cafe in Newkirk.
When did they build the Harvey House?
When did they build it?
Yes, ma'am.
I sure don't know. I don't know. All I can remember, a depot. And then this Harvey House, when it come up, I just don't remember.
Who owned the Harvey House?
Fred.
Hmm?
Fred Harvey.
Fred Harvey?
First I can remember.
Okay.
That is where his check came from, huh?
Fred Harvey's all I know about the first starting of it.
Mm-hmm. How long was it in operation, Harvey House?
I don't remember. Sure don't.
How long did Robert work at the Harvey House?
Oh, let me see if I can remember when that biggest flood we had. We were living in Elbow then. He must have worked there about 4 or 5 years, and then he went to Newkirk. Might have worked longer than that because the children was up pretty good size. Went to Newkirk. And he started cooking at Chili King Cafe, Newkirk. We moved there.
To Newkirk.
Cape County.
Let me regress just a minute.
All right.
Can you describe what the town of Guthrie looked in your childhood?
Well, it wasn't very much is what I can remember. It has come a long ways. But just like these signs on this street, we didn't have that. And I believe the jailhouse, we didn't have that like it is now. And it used to be streetcars running. You know, streetcars.
Did you ever ride the streetcar?
The loop was up on Drexel. They made the loop to go back. I think it come up on, I don't know, Cleveland or Springer, I believe. That's where they had the sidewalk. They had the track down. And it used to be the streetcar, but the loop turned around up on Drexel. That was up there, but Birch's store used to be.
1920s, 1930s. The many flappers here in Guthrie.
What you mean flappers?
You know, the girls in the 20s that wore the short dresses and bobbed their hair.
Well, if I can remember it right, yes.
You know where the word flapper comes from?
Oh, is it a style?
I'm not sure.
I remember the word all right. Flapper fanny is what they call it.
Were there black women that were flappers too?
I didn't remember. I just didn't remember.
Was it a no-no to be a flapper?
Well, I don't. Too young, I guess. I just don't remember that either. They used to call it flapper fanny.
Yeah. How did the Depression of the 1930s affect you and your family?
Well, it was pretty rough for one little while.
Were you living here in Guthrie at the time?
Yeah, some parts
in the
of
30s?
it.
And that's, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Young, but as far as I know, we got by somehow. We didn't ever just be hungry or nothing like that. Probably didn't have the things we thought we ought to have and didn't. But it was a little rough, I think, with everybody.
Was your husband working at the Harvey House at that time? In the 30s?
Yeah. Yes, he was working at the end. And that's part of where we got some of our food from, leftovers, and that's part of it, because they got through feeding all of them. They didn't mind them sharing what was left, and that's part of where we got most of our food at. Children.
What were the main meals served at the Harvey House?
Well, they had steaks, fish. That was one of the main things, steak, fish, roast, desserts. He would bring quite a bit home. Would almost take care of the family for maybe a couple of days or something like that.
Did they have fresh pastries and things also?
Well, seemed like Mr. Riggins, Ben Riggins or Charlie Riggins was there, but which one was pastry? I just don't remember.
Did you ever hear your husband talk about Harvey girls?
Harvey girls?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't believe so.
They were the girls that waited on the
What
table.
table? Well, I don't believe so because most of his was in the kitchen, you know. I don't think he served in the dining area at all, but his was in the kitchen.
What did he cook mainly? Was he the pastry chef or was he head chef?
No, he
or-
was a main cook.
He was the main cook.
Main cook.
Okay.
Then I think the others come under him. Helpers is we use it. But he was the main cook.
How long did he work at the Harvey House?
Well, far as I can remember back, I believe it was every bit of 5 years. If I can remember it right. Now I wouldn't just but I believe it was.
Did he enjoy his work?
Oh, he
working
did.
there?
He was a cook, and that's what he followed.
He thought that was very
Yeah.
important to him.
He was a cook.
Was the Harvey House closing when he left, or he was offered a better job?
I don't remember whether Harvey House closed is why he went to Newkirk. I just can't remember back there. I don't.
Was your husband a little bit older than you?
Oh yes. On there, I believe I was. But when we married, did you have? Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
I've had to get all this from what I had to do. See, he was 21 and I was 16.
Okay. Yeah, 5 years older.
All right. That's the way pretty well with this second husband I had.
World War II. Was there much organized effort in Guthrie to support the war effort?
That's when my second husband went in World War II. What did you say now?
Was there much work for the war effort and the townspeople working?
Well, yes, it was work open here.
What kind of work was here mainly for the war effort? Because I know a lot of people work at Douglas and Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I did too a while. And
Did they have fundraisers, or
huh?
did they have fundraising? Did the black people get in there and work, trying to raise money and funds for the war effort, like bonds, or?
Well, I know my husband bought bonds. But now first, the effort to help, I guess I don't quite understand it.
Did Red Cross workers? Did
They had that.
like
they had
write
that.
letters
Yeah,
to soldiers or?
They had that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had that Red Cross stuff going.
Did you ever help?
Just one time in my area, they gave me the little deal, little gadget to work with, and I just went in my neighborhood, and I don't forgot what I raised now, but anyway, I turned it over to the Red Cross. So I had children, didn't have too much time, but I tried.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite childhood memory. Well, I'll have to say it this way. My parents always loved us, and they survived for us a whole lot more than I seen other children had. We didn't ever go to bed hungry. And my mother lived. We had just about anything anybody else had for children part. And that was our life. Looking forward to, we know what we were gonna have. She promised us something, she would always get it. And we didn't ever go lacking for anything.
So your mother's love was
Mother's love was very important, really.
What kind of games did you play as a child?
Basketball.
Basketball? What position did you play?
So many years there. We had one girl. We all flocked to her. Her name was Aline Doolin. This was up here at Douglas. And any side that she was on, we would always be with her. And that's the part we played.
She was kind of your leader.
Right, right. Let me check in the kitchen here. Just
Yeah.
I'll be right back. And then I had a cousin on there too, but they were one on each side. Her name was Helen Austin. But we always catered to Aline Doolin.
And that was y'all's game, was
Yeah.
basketball.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
What you mean living all together?
Altogether?
Robert Jr., Frederick Perry, Charles Ray Perry, Elmer Perry, and Margaret Perry. 5. And I haven't lost but one. That's the oldest. The rest of them is all, living.
Yeah. Let me see.
Can you remember the State Capitol Publishing newspaper? You remember the newspaper, the State Capitol? Did you ever see Mr. Greer, the editor, the owner of the newspaper? Do you recall ever seeing him? Greer?
Well,
have you heard of him before?
Well, I've heard the name, but now remembering who the person is, I don't.
So you wouldn't know how the people took to Mr. Greer?
No.
Okay.
Do you remember the newspaper? Was it the Baptist Safeguard?
I don't.
Or Oklahoma Safeguard?
I don't remember nothing of a newspaper but the Leader.
The Leader.
So all I remember of the Guthrie paper. That's the only paper I remember of.
Can you remember anything in the black community that was something that happened exciting or to the black people? Can you remember anything like this that drew everybody together?
Well, most that I can remember is that flood we had. And that's when we all went to the depot and they fed us out of the Harvey House. And
what year was that?
I'm trying to get together. What year that was.
And everybody stood together to help one another.
Yeah.
Mrs. Barber, what did you think about the Jim Crow law that they had here?
Well, it's a lot of thoughts behind that, and I've always wanted to think the right way, regardless to which way it come, but I think justice due for all. And what they had up for Jim Crow and all of that, I really don't feel it was right, but we had no other way but to accept whatever it was. So we're coming out of that now, but it takes us to work together to bring it where it ought to be, if it ever get there.
When you were raising your children and they would ask you about the Jim Crow law, what would you explain to them? You would still teach them love everybody?
That's all I could do, because, you know, when you have a bunch of children and you're young, you have to look at the right side of life and try to stay with that regardless to whatever else is coming. Well, I didn't ever feel to get with what was wrong, but if you got to stand alone to stand up for right, that's all you could do. But you know within it is not right, because I think justice do everybody, whatever color, black, white, red, or anybody, because God in heaven doesn't have no respected person. And we got to do this down here. I don't know when it'll ever come, and hope that it will, but whoever's left behind can tell the story. Now, that's the way I feel about it. Okay. We can't make these laws, and we can't break them. So we have to accept whatever comes and make the best that we can.
Have you seen in your own eyes a lot of changes come about since this Jim Crow law came out? And
yes, I have. It's coming. Gradually, it is coming. So I'm real thankful for that. That, you know, we have a right to a lot of things that we didn't have. I'm real thankful for that.
So you can see that maybe the youth today can have these rights.
Right.
Did you have any of your sons that served in the military?
Yeah, I had 2.
And what branch of the service were they in?
Now, honey, I just don't remember what branch, but I had 2 sons in the service and my husband at the same time.
And this was in World War II?
2. 2 of my boys was in Korea War, but my husband, he didn't have to go out to state. And I had my youngest boy, he got wounded.
In the Korean War?
And then my second boy, that's his picture up there, he was in, I can't remember that far place, but it was overseas. And he's the one that's under this program, Linda Kavanaugh, at their hospice. But she told me Monday it was going to something else. I couldn't get the name because I had all this stuff and getting things straight down there. But I'll catch up with it.
Where was your grandmother born? The one that sent you to school? Where was she from?
I guess it's where my father come from. Almost had to be
South Carolina.
Yeah, it had to be. Mother and father come where my father at least come from, but that's just about where my grandparents were from till they come to Oklahoma.
When was your grandmother born? Do you remember?
I must have been back there in Carolina, I guess. I don't.
You remember what year?
No, Lord, no. Sure don't.
Was she born into slavery, or was it after the Civil War?
Well, into slavery. I had a lot of pamphlets of my grandfather's life, but where I had to rectify that picture. My grandfather, history, he told all about where he come from and where he ended up at.
During this period of time. During this period of time.
Did they ever? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was kind of under the slavery too.
Yeah. Did they ever talk about the slave days?
Not in front of us kids. We just heard a little bit, but they didn't have a conversation about that in front of us.
Was there reasons? They just didn't want you to.
I guess they didn't want us to really know about what they had gone through, but sometimes things get out and children grasp it and they don't forget it.
And they grasp it.
Now I remember my grandfather, what he said, but now what was going on then, I don't know. But as I read the little pamphlet that he wrote himself. I said it must have been pretty horrible.
Do you have a copy of that pamphlet?
I don't know where I'd find it right now. I do have it, but I sure don't know which way to go to find it now.
No, that's...
That pamphlet probably.
It would be a history, but
if you ever run upon them,
my husband, first husband, I said.
Was there anything that he, pertaining to his work, like at the Harvey House, is there anything that he did that you can recall that would be memorable to lots of people because of the Harvey House, its importance? It provided a job, thank goodness for Fred Harvey.
Well,
being there for my husband to have a job.
Said that way, that sounds good. And he has been helpful to quite a few people in all the ways that he knew how. And he was a husband to me and a father to the children. However, we weren't together when he passed. He had separated, and then he went his way and I went mine. But he was devoted, but he just had some problems I couldn't cope with. But he wasn't ever too lazy to work. He's always had a job.
Always worked.
Yeah, he's always had a job and provided for the family.
And when I talked to you on the telephone, you said that he had this pride being the head cook at the Harvey House. And you know, I had mentioned that there was some question that they thought they were all French cooks.
No,
in Harvey
no.
Houses.
The black
Had you
cook,
heard
as
that,
far
Mr.
as I could
No, I
know.
haven't heard that.
Well, that's my first too. But I don't remember when it started or who they had before him. Harvey House, and I was glad to give us the food. And then, like when the day is over, whatever food was left, they divided up and brought it home to a family, and that was a big help for us. Because back there they wasn't paying a whole lot, but you could get by pretty good if you manage right. It's just like today, they pay a whole lot, but if you don't manage right, you bad as the fellow didn't have it.
That's right.
So that's the part I remember about it, and it is true.
Did you know Mr. Harvey, Fred Harvey?
Well, just knowed his name and knew him when I seen him, but just personally, I didn't.
Yeah.
Did he come into the Guthrie Harvey House very often? Did your husband ever say to check the kitchens out?
Well, I remember him saying every so often they would, well, you see how I said it, every so often they would come and take an inventory or see how things was kept around there, clean or it's sanitary and all that. Now, who did that, I don't know, but every so often I'd hear my husband say, well, we got to get on our P's and Q's today. And I said, well, what is all that about? He said, scrubbing and cleaning up. They maybe go a few days and not go into real cleaning like it should, but they knew when these inspectors were coming, whoever they might have been. But they kept things real nice down there. They sure did.
That'd be interesting for Mr. DeWalt to
Yeah.
him knowing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
I know Mr. DeWalt.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yes.
Well, I didn't know.
Yeah, I know him. Been in his office quite a few times.
Well, he's gonna be surprised that we have your name.
Yeah.
Well, anything else? Okay.
Well, I sure would
Mrs.
love
Barber, I
to.
want to thank you.
Well, you're just so welcome, and this will be lovely for the children. I'd like to get enough paper secure to clip it out and send it to the children. Long remembrance.
I tell you what, I'm gonna do this to you every meeting.
Oh, that's nice.
Mr. Todd